Get that squirrel. Alright, let's get this properly situated. Notifying viewers that you are live. Megan, thank you for being here today. We're going to have an exciting discussion about who we want our children to be and how we go about achieving that aim, including nutrition. I posted a TikTok video this morning that's got some good traction about a curriculum designed to familiarize children with homeopathy and being healthy. And to me, as a parent, a good education prepares children to be independent, sovereign people, and we're going to talk about that. So, one of the first things I talk about, all right, people coming in today, one of the first things I talk about when I do homeschool consultations with families, in which I set up pretty much their whole homeschool, is first question. I look them in the eye and I say, who do you envision your child being when they grow up? And of course, so many people are taken aback by that question because they don't get it, right? When children go to public school, it's, oh, well, we want them to learn math right now. We want them to learn science. We want them to learn, this history. But nobody ever asks why and what the big picture is going to be, which is why how many young people go to college, sign on the dotted line, take out $200,000 in many cases of college loans, and they don't even have a major, right? They don't know what they want to do in life because children don't have direction. Well, one of the things we need to do, get into the habit of as parents, it's really a question that parents should ask themselves at the beginning of every school year. Who do I envision my child being when they're an adult? Because then you have that objective and you could adjust, readjust, and work your way toward making your child, developing your child in a way that they are going to achieve that goal. So I sit down with parents and I say, who do you envision your child being when they're an adult? So I think about my children. I want them to be free. Well, first I want them to be moral. I want them to be free, sovereign, independent. I don't want them to rely on me. I don't want them to rely on an employer. I don't want them to rely on anybody else. So the question is, how do we do that? Now, the most obvious answer, and I think a lot of homeschool parents understand this, is you want to raise children with your values. So I come from a Christian perspective, so I raise my child with Christian values. Now, you might be a Muslim, you might be Jewish, you might be atheist, whatever you are. The point is that why would you allow someone with values that are antithetical to your own to educate your children? So, to me, you want to give them a root in morality, whatever that morality is to you. And then you want to start the process, keep it going. Thank you so much. I'm very interactive, so if you have any questions about your individual homeschool, your child, anything I'm talking about, the world, feel free to jump in. I'm more than happy to answer your questions and really talk about pretty much anything. So to me, you want your child to be moral. You want them to have your values. You want them to be free, independent, and sovereign. You don't want them to rely on a corporate boss or an institution or anybody else. Not that you want them to be alone. In fact, my values, one of the things I really preach is community. And I want my children to adopt that from me. One of the things I did with my boy last summer that I absolutely loved, I'm going to do it again soon, is I've moved across the country, so I haven't had the chance to do it yet. But last summer, one of the things that we did was my boy and I, this is 3 years old, we planted 50 lettuce seeds in solo cups. And he watered them every day, and then they sprout up about a week or two later. And we got a box, and we put the solo cups in a box, and this was in the height of a pandemic, right? Supposedly everyone was so afraid that nobody wanted to go near anybody, don't see grandma, right? All this stuff. We went door to door. I knocked on my neighbor's door. This is when I was still in New York, so I didn't even know most of these people, right? In New York, you live next to your neighbor, but you don't know them. In the South, you live further away from your neighbors, but you're friends. It's a very interesting dynamic. It speaks to the values in the regions. It's very interesting. But we knocked door to door, and people answered the door, and my little 3-year-old boy took his solo cup with a lettuce sprout in it, and he brought it to these people. And you should have saw the smiles on all of my neighbors' faces, people that I had never met. And the lesson paid off almost instantly. There is a reason it really does benefit you to love thy neighbor. So we're going around door to door, and my son's giving lettuce sprouts to all the neighbors. And as it so happens, my car battery had actually died earlier that day. So I figured, all right, I'm going to have to go to the store, get a new car battery, replace the battery. It'll be a good lesson for Brady. I was going to do that with him. I skills as young as possible. Well, as it happens, one of the neighbors was outside, their teenage boy was outside fixing up his car. He liked to buy cars, fix them up, and flip them. Very impressive young man, actually. And we brought them this lettuce, and I told him about my car. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, yeah, I actually have to fix my car battery or get a new car battery. It died. And he says, let me come take a look at it. So he comes across the street, walks down the block, and he takes a look at my battery. He says, no, we could fix this. And he wound up bringing over a charger. He said, plug this in, hook it up to the battery, leave it for 12 hours, your car will be fine. And sure enough, 12 hours later, my car started, and the simple act of me bringing my neighbor, who I had never met, a cup with a lettuce sprout had instantly saved me hundreds of dollars that I was going to spend on a new car battery, right? And I was so happy because my son got to see the lesson in that. So to me, one of the most important things we can do as homeschool parents is raise children with our values. Now we're going to get into the other aspects. Keep it going. That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, you want to chime in about anything, feel free. This is an exciting talk, and at the end of this, I was actually hoping you could help me because I'm giving a speech at the Constitution Party National Convention Saturday at 2:30. So I have been writing it all week. I don't like to help me because I'm giving a speech at the Constitution Party National Convention Saturday at 2:30, so I have been writing it all week. I don't like politics, in spite of what people might think when they see my books. I did a stream yesterday, posted on the Classical Learner YouTube page, and I actually posted, there's a program called, I think, Winning Feathers, which is designed to teach children as young as 7 years old about public speaking, something I've been thinking a lot about this week. It's a program I really like. So, in early childhood education, well, let's talk about what happens in public school, right? You send your children to public school, and teachers are worried about what? Standardized testing, right? So, little Matthew has to know this historical date by second grade because if he doesn't, he's going to take a standardized test. He won't get a good grade. The school will lose funding. The teacher will lose, whatever. And all of the incentives are wrong because the number one objective of early childhood education should not be memorization, but should be the process of learning itself, right? So if I'm going to raise a free, independent, sovereign human being, it has to start with early childhood education. It has to start with the process of learning. And we can do that in a variety of ways. But to start, I like to focus on education around critical thinking, right? Everything is critical thinking. So when children study history, rather than having them memorize historical dates, you allow them to read primary documents, and then you could have them write papers or give oral presentations about their own unique understanding and their own unique theory about historical events based on their reading of primary documents. And they might not know the date that this historical event happened, but they will have developed critical thinking skills, and that will help them much later on. And when they're 18 years old, sorry about the connection problems there. I really like streaming out here. I did a paper on how standardized tests causes so much anxiety and doesn't help. I presented it to my... anyway, that's really cool that you wrote a paper on that. Yeah, because standardized testing, it puts pressure on children to memorize information, and presented it to his class, and people actually argued. Yeah, it presents... standardized puts children in a position where they are tasked with memorizing information, and if they memorize that information and are able to regurgitate it, they are told by authority, they get a good grade, that they are now educated. But all they've learned is how to memorize. Now, I could tell you something happened historically, and this is the date that it happened, and you could memorize that, but do you really know, right? Do you really know, or did you just regurgitate what I told you? The only way you know is by reading the primary documents and formulating your own unique understanding. We listen to the news, and they don't give you a straight story in one day. What do you think? You think we're getting a straight story about things that happened 70 years ago? Do you think the narratives around the Civil War and things of that nature might be altered for political reasons so that they could convince young black people that they're victims, and they can convince young white people that they're oppressors, right? Authoritative history is altered by the political narrative of the day, right? When children learn science, they shouldn't open up a textbook and read alleged scientific facts, right? Did you know that 90% of the world's oceans are unexplored? One of the travesties of public school is it is structured to make young children believe that everything has been discovered and everything there is to know is already known, and they just have to memorize what smarter people than them have already figured out, which is why so many people in society today are unable to question authoritative medicine, right? They're unable to question anyone wearing a lab coat because they've been conditioned from the time they were young. But the truth is that most of the world is undiscovered, and even most of the things that are scientific fact change constantly. Just look at the food pyramid 30 years ago versus what it is today, right? We were told growing up that a healthy diet included chemical-filled sugary cereals, right? Absolute nonsense. Because if you study propaganda, you know that these regulatory agencies, these scientific authorities, are impacted by donations, right? Follow the money, stupid. Follow the money, stupid. I love the KiwiCo boxes. You can get them monthly in the mail, where their children are interacting actively with their environment. I just wanted to say thank you for your content. I love it. Yeah, I mean, you guys are what makes it possible, because I have to spend so much time doing this that if I didn't get engagement, then I always tell people, support what you like or it goes away. It's another thing people have been conditioned not to understand. Like, people will spend $10 a month on Netflix who hates them, but they won't spend $10 a month on creators who are making the world a better place, when that $10 a month could be the difference between them saying, you know what, I don't have the time to do this, versus, all right, I'm able to make a living doing this, I could feed my family, making the world a better place, when that $10 a month could be the difference between them saying, you know what, I don't have the time to do this, versus, all right, I'm able to make a living doing this, I could feed my family, and sorry about the connection problems. I'm going to the house here. Fortunately, this isn't working out very well. New Wi-Fi points and put them out in the property so that I don't have a problem. Connection problems out there. I gotta get it fixed this weekend. All right, where were we? Right, so children should study history science, English differently. You should get them into the habit of, when your children do writing, right, you don't hand them back a piece of paper with a B on it or an A plus or a C in red pen. That doesn't teach children anything. They don't need that grade. What they need is to get into the habit of editing their own work, right? Because when you edit your own work, you're training the mind to think about grammar, to think about topic sentences, to think about a thesis, a body and conclusion, where commas go, where periods go, how you can improve your writing. And the beautiful thing, when you teach your children in that matter, they actually pick up on the literary styles of other authors that they read. So early childhood education is about a master's in the process of learning itself and the development of critical thinking skills versus anything that might have to do with memorization. So focus on that, and then you want to start to teach children. One of the things I love, there's a book, The Well-Trained Mind, which teaches about classical education, or Dorothy Sayers wrote, oh God, what is the book? Well-Trained Mind, and I Need a Well-Trained Mind. The Lost Tools of Learning by Dorothy Sayers, which teaches about classical education. So if you go to the elite private schools in America, they are taught grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So your children are doing history a certain way, they're doing science a certain way, they're doing English a certain way, and then they should be learning the classical trivium, where they're learning to define their terms, identify logical contradictions, and then communicate their position. One of the ways you can teach your children logic, a book I love, is The Fallacy Detective, right? Which teaches children all the different types of fallacy, right? If someone's making an argument, have they created a straw man, right? So a straw man is where you take someone's argument, you alter it, and then you debunk the altered argument. But you never actually debunked the argument the original person made. And this is a way in which news media and politicians manipulate people all the time. So you're teaching children grammar, you're teaching them logic, you're teaching them rhetoric, you're having them read primary historical documents, do hands-on scientific experiments. They're editing their own they're editing their own writing, and they're getting into the habit of improving their writing skills. These are all the different types of things that contribute to the process of learning versus memorization. So once your children master the process of learning, right, they're capable of learning something from scratch on their own, because the objective, the reason for that is when your child is in early childhood education, if you master the process of learning and critical thinking, by the time they get to high school, 80-90% of their work could be completely driven by what they're interested in, their own independent research, their own independent projects. I pulled my child from an expensive private school this week. Congratulations. If you want to set up a consultation, I am available for that through my website. Let's see if I can improve the lighting here. Hold on. That better? It's probably better, right? Open this window. Let there be light. All right. That better? So, if the objective is to raise free and independent people, we want them to be, by the time they're in high school, to be doing their own independent research, to be critical thinkers, to be masters, and God said, let there be light, and be masters of the process of learning itself, right? And then the goal should really be that when they're 18, that they're capable of living freely and sovereignty in the world, freely and sovereignly in the world. So how do you do that? I always tell people it's ridiculous that graduation takes place after an arbitrary number of course hours. Graduation should take place when a young boy or a young girl is capable of being a free and independent man or woman in the world and in a free market. So to me, you want to, with early childhood education, start with skill development as young as possible. Skills over subject matter, not that subjects don't matter. So what do I mean by that? A child who is proficient in art, music, construction, engineering, computer coding, any skill you could really think of, whether that's plumbing, electrical, hair cutting, photography, videography, cooking, but skills, is capable of taking what's in their mind and producing it in physical reality. So we want to give our children options as they grow up, as they get older in life. And one of the reasons so many people feel limited is because they don't have skills, right? Because, for example, a person who is a master in the art of photography knows that they could start a photography business, right? Very simple stuff. I worry about pulling my son from kindergarten and not having that important social aspect. Yeah, well, that's a legitimate worry, but what I would say is approach socialization the same way you approach math and science. Just make it a priority. So take your child to parks a few times a week, set up play dates with other children, attend groups at your local church, get them involved in art classes or music classes, sign them up for sporting teams, sign them up for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whatever it might be, and just make socialization a priority. And if you do that, socialization won't be a problem. So in early childhood education, we focus on critical thinking over memorization. We focus on the process of learning over learning any specific information. And we hyper-focus on skill development. So like I said, construction, art, music, engineering, photography, videography, computer coding, any skills that your child could master will benefit them later in life and give them options as to things that they can do. And then what we want to do is develop an entrepreneurial mindset. So from as young an age as possible, we want to have our children engage in basic business type of things. So if your child is interested in baking, and it's just such an easy example, right? You could have them bake goods and sell their cookies or whatever it might be on a table on the front lawn. Whatever it might be, you can have them cook an original meal and invite friends and family and do basic marketing. But your children should be doing business things every semester from really 4 or 5 years old, maybe 5 years old, every semester. I mean, I've worked with young children that have started their own farmers markets. They planted seeds, grew their food, and then at the end of the summer, they actually sold their tomatoes and stuff to their neighbors. Like, there's so many cool things you can do, but you want to develop an entrepreneurial mindset, because a child with an entrepreneurial mindset, right, with skills in a variety of areas, entrepreneurial experience, can take what's in their mind and produce it in physical reality, capable of critical thinking, masters in the process of learning, based in morality, right, is a child that's much more likely to be free and independent, right? And the goal really should be that by the time they're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, that they're already running their own business and that they're capable at the very least of paying rent, so that they can move out and be independent and free. But hopefully they're, with financial literacy, they're also capable of getting property and really living a sovereign life, a life out in the frontier, that rugged individualist lifestyle that made America a great place originally. So we want to develop skills. We want to develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And then I wanted to bring it back to the post I made earlier today, which was on homeopathy and a curriculum that I really like. So to me, a big focus on early childhood education. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I let my children eat sugar and junk because I feel like if I tell them they can't have any, that it kind of creates a fetish for it and it goes the other way. But the most important thing is that they understand nutrition, because a 20, a 25, a 30-year-old that understands nutrition will start to make good decisions, right? So you want to make sure they understand that from as young as possible. So children should have a relationship with food. Look into homeschool groups in your area. Post in mom groups for play dates. Yeah, and my private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected, is another good resource for that type of thing. Promo code TOGETHER for $10 a month. But you want your children to have a relationship with food, right? So they should be gardening from as young as possible. One of the assignments that I love is each summer, at the beginning of the summer, you incorporate some construction. So you actually construct a garden box with young children, 5 years old, have them do the hammering, put everything together, the planning, construct a garden box, and have them be in charge of that garden box for the summer. And they could learn math. You could calculate surface area, how far apart the seeds should be spread, all that type of stuff. And then just have them take care of the seeds all summer, grow their own food. And when they're doing that, and they're watching where food comes from and what healthy food is, you could also have them working, on weekly cooking assignments, right? There are books on Amazon for $10 for children that are designed to teach children to cook. So they could be learning to cook, growing their own food, learning about nutrition. At the end of the summer, they could take the crops, the harvest of what they grew, and they could actually use it to cook meals. They should be participating in grocery shopping. Maybe once a month, your children should do an assignment in which they pick a random ingredient on the back of a box at a grocery store, and then you should go on to DuckDuckGo and actually do the research with them and teach them how to research what that product is so that they can learn, wow, these are chemicals, this food is processed, maybe it's not the healthiest thing. They could start to research the difference between organic and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that things have to be labeled organic, but if you want something organic, you have to look for something that says organic, but it's not required that these corrupt food companies label food chemically altered, right? It should say genetically modified food should be mandatory, right? Not organic. It's absurd. But your children should be doing these things from a young age so they have a relationship with their food and understand nutrition. And then a program that I really love that I highlighted I highlighted in my first TikTok of the day today is Poella Brown Homeopathy, which is an entire curriculum designed to teach children about homeopathy, herbology. Children work directly with herbs. They make their own remedies. They learn about the healing powers of certain plants and how to release the oils of those plants so that you could benefit from their healing properties. It's really cool. And if you have your children gardening, you could actually have them grow the lavender that they're going to use as part of those homeopathy assignments. So you're doing some really cool hands-on things that I think all children should learn. I mean, when you ask me what I want from my child as an adult, I want them to be healthy, strong, independent people. And to me, by teaching them nutrition, you could literally add years to the life of your child. Who wouldn't want that? So to me, nutrition is more important than math and science and everything. To me, that's core subjects right there, right? But in public school, oh, don't worry about that. We'll shut down the United States and America and the entire world over an invisible boogeyman, but we won't teach people how to, eat healthy enough not to get diabetes, right? Nonsense. All corruption. And speaking of that corruption and nonsense, I am giving a speech at the Constitution Party National Convention on Saturday, and I've been working on it. And if you don't mind, I would actually like to practice it right here in front of my live audience. And I would love your feedback, and anything you think I should add to the speech would really be cool. So without further ado, I'm just going to let this rip. I'm going to get into it. I only feed my dogs real meats and fish because what you eat matters. You are what you eat. I'm actually coming out with a new book in the Cubs to Bears series in December called You Are What You Eat, and it's going to be all about teaching children nutrition. Put together a package with all the materials needed for a semester. I'll buy it. Thanks. I really appreciate it. I mean, if you want to support me now, the best way to do that is to join Homeschools Connected. That's my private homeschool community. Promo code TOGETHER. Interesting you use the word together. Promo code TOGETHER. And that's $10 a month. And there's a plethora there's all my curriculum research in there. You get access to the community. You get access to myself. And I invest that money back into the community. And I invest that money into my books. that I write, and over time I actually do plan on making entire curriculums, but right now time is limited and I do what I can. So kids aren't getting out and playing like they used to. Nutrition is very important. My nutrition book will have lesson plans, yes. Some pretty cool stuff I plan to do with that. So without further ado, this is the speech I'll give Saturday. I really appreciate you hearing this out, and I really appreciate your feedback, because I'm just also going to just want to take a look at this. Okay, I appreciate your feedback because it's a big speech in front of a big room, and I think it's an opportunity. I'm going to talk in hobo code here because the algorithms won't want to hear what I'm going to say in my speech. All right, ready? 15 days to stop the spread. Surrender your rights or you'll be dead. Trace me, track me, mask me too. Censor me like tyrants do. Blank and passports for me and you. Oh, see, I messed it. All right. Trace me, track me, mask me too. Censor me like tyrants do. All right. I better do a better job giving my speech because I've already butchered it. All right, ready? Here we go again. 15 days to stop the spread. Surrender your rights or you'll be dead. Trace me, track me, mask me too. Vaccines and passports for me and you. Sorry, tyrants, don't hold your breath. Give me liberty or give me death. Mark me, ban me, shame me too. Censor me like tyrants do. Threats, coercion, let me be clear. A free man does not give in to fear. Are you willing to pay the fee? Freedom isn't always free. My grandfather fought in Japan in World War II, and my father volunteered for Vietnam on his 18th birthday, United States Marines. How many Americans have risked everything, sacrificed everything to protect free speech, freedom of religion, the right to assemble, the right to bear arms, and the pursuit of happiness, only to see so many willing to surrender those rights because they are afraid? My father was afraid. My grandfather was afraid when he went to Japan. How many Marines have been afraid? Members of the Navy, the Air Force were afraid. But they stood for something greater than themselves. They stood for liberty because it's worth standing for. When the founding fathers rebelled against the crown, all of the men involved, the signers of the Declaration of Independence, knew they would be hung if they lost the war. Freedom has never been free, but has always been worth fighting for. That was a revolution, but today we need a revelation. We have the power to liberate ourselves from the chains of tyranny. America is and always has been a land ruled by the consent of the governed. I didn't believe that for a while. I had grown cynical. But now I know it to be true. Growing up, I lived for America. The flag, NFL football, chasing girls, crashing parties, chasing girls, alcohol. I met my wife at a bar. I looked her in the eyes and I never looked back. It was love at first sight. You hear that, baby? I hear you listening in there. And my beautiful wife and Brady and Aubrey, my children, will be there, and I am truly blessed. Everything changes when you have children. I saw God for the first time when I looked into the eyes of my little boy, and then I realized I had seen God my whole life. I studied the Bible, became spiritual, and that's the war. It's spiritual. That's what they don't want you to know. Our enemies seek to demoralize us. So our response must be to remoralize us. Talking in hobo code here. Heineken infection was the great revealer. It had revealed the deepest levels of corruption within not only institutions but people themselves. The uniformity of government, media, social media, insurance companies, banks, foundations, corporations, medicine, not only in America but around most of the world, to regurgitate nonsense in lockstep with the official narrative should alarm all of us. Politicians, news pundits, late-night comedians, sport broadcasters, celebrities, even Elmo, echoing the dictates of tyrants. How dangerous in a society in which idol worship is celebrated. You could see people ruled by fear, authority, cowardice, corruption. Which neighbors would be willing to put you on a train? But we also saw those with courage, conviction to follow a higher power, the truth. People willing to stand resolute in the face of ostracism, defamation of character, and social shame. Some of the bravest people you will ever meet are 5'3" moms willing to walk into Trader Joe's in California with a big visible smile on their face. 2020 revealed that government is not only composed of bodies of law, but grocery stores, unelected bureaucrats, corporations, employers, and the conglomerate of institutions already mentioned. Take the you-know-what, or you can't get work and pay your mortgage. A man in debt who has to pay a mortgage, who has to enter a grocery store to get his food is much easier to control, much easier to coerce into surrendering his God-given liberty. We live in a culture in which people are relentlessly pressured to keep up with the Joneses. Well, now the Joneses have to keep up with the CDC. Have you ever heard of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment? Because I have. My wife and I decided to sell our Long Island home to live debt-free. I moved my family across the country and purchased 16 acres of tree-covered land to start a homestead. A man without debt who can grow his own food is dangerous to those who wish to subvert a great nation, the people of the United States of America. A nation is a people. Last August, I looked my wife in the eyes and said, let's have a baby. You should have seen her smile. You should see how beautiful the twinkle in her eye is when my wife is truly happy. My daughter, Aubrey, will be there that night. She's 4 months old. Starting a homestead requires skills, the type of skills not taught in public school. I should know I graduated with a bachelor's degree in history education and earned a 4.0 GPA in the Queens College Birth to Two Special Education Master's Program. I didn't have to spend much time in public school before I realized that wasn't where I wanted to be. I came across the works of great minds like John Taylor Gatto, 3-time New York City Teacher of the Year, who abruptly resigned before spending the rest of his life eviscerating the government education system. The government's education system. It is not our education system, it is the government's. Every parent should read his books, Dumbing Us Down and Weapons of Mass Instruction. I went my own path and started the Classical Learner Homeschooling Company. Earned a living teaching parents about Montessori, Charlotte Mason, classical education, unschooling. Why aren't children taught their rights? Financial literacy, entrepreneurship, construction, engineering, computer coding, cooking, photography, art, music, and so much more. A boy educated in skills with entrepreneurial experience who commands his rights and is financially literate becomes a man who is very difficult to control. Children shouldn't memorize history. They should read primary documents and formulate their own unique understanding of events. Children shouldn't read about science, but they should observe the world, make their own theories, and develop an intimate relationship with the scientific method. They should be given time to read as much as possible and encouraged to write creatively. Children are so imaginative. They shouldn't be given graded papers back with letters written in red pen, but should form the habit of editing their own work. Early childhood education is all about the process of learning and the development of critical thinking skills, antithetical to that which happens in public schools, in which creativity is shunned and memorization is prioritized. A citizenry of people who live within their means, grow their own food, put family first, have lots of children, homeschool, and are taught their rights from a young age are very difficult to control. How do we teach children their rights? They should read the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Federalist Papers, the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, George Washington's Rules for Civility and Decency, the correspondence of Thomas Jefferson, and the poetic words of Thomas Paine. What would a modern version of the book Common Sense say? For those of you who don't know, Thomas Paine was the author of Common Sense, which was the book which essentially catapulted America forward into revolution. It is common sense that we are free to come together in the presence of God. It is common sense that we are free to breathe, to work, to travel. It is common sense that we are free to speak. It is common sense that no government official, employer, or other human being on God's earth has the authority to forcibly inject you with chemicals against your free will. It is common sense that mandates are not laws. When in the course of human events, institutions attempt to subvert the principles of liberty, it is the duty of a responsible citizenry to strengthen its ties to those principles and the roots which made their formation possible. Children should not only study America's founding documents, but should be familiarized with and experienced in exercising their God-given rights. They should be educated in how to speak to police officers, to cooperate and not answer questions. They should be versed in questioning the jurisdiction of government officials. They should be familiar with affidavits and filing notices of liability, and hold command over how to protect their God-given rights. God-given rights. We have forgotten the power of a living man and woman under God. Two years ago, I started writing the Cubs to Bears book series. Books on free speech, social media censorship, the right to bear arms, the congressionally documented history of fake news, the structure of the financial system, and morality. The books are not only designed to teach children their rights, but to reveal the mechanisms through which institutions manipulate people to surrender those rights. Children deserve better culture than that depicted by Disney or Hollywood. They deserve better culture, period. Children deserve entertainment that depicts traditional American values, hard work, rugged individualism, Christian community, and family. Young people who wait until marriage should be celebrated, antithetical to a culture that relentlessly pressures young people to engage in promiscuity. I stopped drinking alcohol so my children would grow up knowing it's okay not to drink. I don't watch television or corporate news or much NFL at all anymore because I will not support institutions of subversion who assist in the destruction of everything I hold dear and wish my children to have. We always hear that politics are downstream from culture, but culture is downstream from morality. Keeping up with the Joneses should be replaced with remain humble and free. People who live within their means should be celebrated, and material extravagance should be viewed for what it is. Young people are pressured into hundreds of thousands of dollars of college loans, car payments, and mortgages before being educated to the slightest degree as to the impact these debts will have on their quality of life. Did I mention a man with debt is much easier to coerce to surrender his liberty? To accept that he has to get a medical procedure he is not comfortable with? Children should be versed in financial literacy. Entrepreneurship should be embedded into everything they do. I know 5-year-olds that have ran farmers markets, 8-year-olds that have fixed cars for money, and a 15-year-old boy who ran a newspaper. That last one was Ben Franklin. Children should have experience with business, products, services, marketing, and sales. Graduation should not take place after an arbitrary number of course hours, but when a young man or woman has proven they are capable of living an independent, sovereign life in a free market. It's why so many homeschool students graduate at 15. A boy experienced in entrepreneurship, loaded with skills, who is financially literate and knows how to defend his rights, becomes a dangerous man to those who wish to subvert liberty. Politics are downstream from culture, but culture is downstream from morality. Before I moved, New York was mask crazy. You would be harassed for daring to walk into a store with a visible smile on your face. I was one of the few citizens who attempted to hold my ground. When I went to vote in the presidential election, I was told that wearing a mask was required. I explained that I was of the understanding that wearing a mask was not good for my health. I did not answer their questions. But I asked if the officials were familiar with HIPAA. I asked if they were suppressing my right to vote. And I recorded. They submitted that I had the right to vote without a mask. It's funny how that changes. But would attempt to shame me. If you are going to vote without a mask, we must first clear out the entire building. I replied, it's not me clearing out the building. That's you. I would wait for 30 minutes at the front of the line as they cleared out an entire country club. I must be VIP because I voted alone that day. Never comply with tyranny. I didn't know what it would be like in North Carolina, a state that would also have a mask mandate. But in the town that I live, it's a pocket of freedom. Nobody bothers anybody else. People respect their choices of their fellow citizen. The difference between where I live now and where I lived on Long Island is what taught me that America truly is government by the consent of the governed. But we, the people, can only take our power back through personal responsibility and through the improvement of culture through resolute morality. Do not support institutions of subversion. Turn off the corporate news and support grassroots media. Boycott professional sports. Get out of debt. Buy mom and pop instead of Walmart. Start businesses. Hire your friends. Grow your food. Follow God. Marry. Have lots of children. Homeschool those children. And arm to the teeth. A dark cloud of tyranny has descended over not only America, but the Western world. Over not only the American citizenry, but over every living man and woman who longs to be free. Look at the man, the woman standing next to you, gathered here today in defiance of tyranny. Listen to the resolution in my voice. See the conviction in my eyes. We will not let day turn to night. We will not surrender our rights. America will live because we will fight. What do you think? Let's see what you guys said. Nailing it. We are on our way to Tennessee. So refreshing to hear like-minded people. It's not public school, it's government school. 100%. Even Christian private schools aren't safe. Hearing our priest saying we are of this world sent me to sadness. Oh, where'd it go? It keeps jumping. Yeah, that's the speech I'm giving on Saturday. Say the last line even louder. Thank you. It's a lot how I think, except children. That's not my place to say if people should have kids. Well, let's think about why I say that, right? Why do I relentlessly pressure people to get out of debt, relentlessly pressure people to have lots of children, and to homeschool? Whether we like it or not, right? America is at war, right? The whole world is at war because there are subversive forces doing everything they can to sever our ties to our liberty, to our freedom, to everything that made America a special place in the first place, right? And they have a lot of control over the political system, but what we have control over, and that's why I say America does not need a revolution, America needs a revelation, right? Because we send the next generation of children to public schools and allow them to be brainwashed, right? And then you get all these patriots on the internet who are like, we need to wake everybody up. Why would you spend more energy waking people up than preventing people from an entire generation from going to sleep in the first place? All those patriots the tyrants are afraid about on the news? I'm the worst one. You don't let them go to sleep in the first place. And then when you show people that the truest form of wealth is not money, the truest form of wealth is children, right? Children who love you will not let you die in a nursing home, right? Those young children who people are like, oh, they're a financial liability. Well, if you raise them right, by the time they're 15, they'll own their own business, right? By the time they're 20, they're not a liability. They'll be a big asset to you, right? Family is the truest wealth. You think there's anything Jeff Bezos could give me for my children? Nothing. They're priceless. I'm wealthier than him. And when you show people that that's what true happiness is, and that if they love their country, the way you take your country back is by marrying, honoring your spouse, having a lot of children, be fruitful and multiply, and then you homeschool those children with the right values. How many patriots will there be in 30 years? That is how you take back your country. When I tell people to have children, I'm not just telling them to have it. I'm telling you that mothers who are having lots of children, that are homeschooling those children, are the modern Rosie the Riveter. Your country needs you. We need you. We are under assault. Look at everything that has happened since March of 2020, what they have done to us. They have told us that we cannot work, that we have to surrender our bodily sovereignty, that we cannot pursue happiness. When I tell people to have children, I'm telling you to serve your country. It's no different than me telling you to sign up for the Marines. This country needs you. And these mothers that are having lots of children and are homeschooling them with the right value, they are patriots. They are soldiers on the front line. And in 20 years, their fruit will be our salvation. So I will never apologize about telling people to have as many children as they can. Because that's what they won't tell you on the news. Because even the news that you think of your friend is just another cage in what the controllers view as a farm. And you are no different than a farm animal to them.
I want to be a cow then.
You're a cow? Just bought all your books. Thank you. I hope you check out the free lesson plans that come with them. Available on my website. See, the people that are elevated into these positions of authority, even on news organizations that you might think are like right-leaning, right? Like a Fox News or Turning Point USA, right? Like these are right-leaning organizations, right? These are cages for different animals. Different animals require different cages. So if you see past the lies of CNN, then they send you to Fox News. If you see past the lies of Fox News, then they send you to Turning Point USA, right? Because what these are outlets, right? They want you to have a place in which you can go and say, yes, finally, someone is pointing out the hypocrisy, right? Someone is saying, okay, so this is America, right? Like Ben Shapiro, his thing, when the stuff happened with Cuties on Netflix, right? That's always his line. So this is America now? Stop with, so this is America. I need solutions, not political solutions. I need people educated on how you fight the system in your everyday life with your own personal responsibility. Because if enough people take that personal responsibility, the government does not have power over you. I learned that when I learned from Long Island to where I am now. We truly are a land of the consent of the governed. Yeah, Mrs. Classical Learner is an absolute legend. You want to see her? She's not only a legend, but, you ready for this? Smoke show.
Oh, stop it.
Smoke show.
This is my mom hair. It looks like I'm growing a plant, just sprouting.
It's prompting me to invite someone. If you want to do a stream, I don't invite impromptu, but if you email me at classicallearnertoday@gmail.com, I'd be happy to have you on to talk about homeschooling. I'd love to interview some homeschool parents. All right, guys. I think I'm going to call it a stream. Tell your friends about me. I post the replays on the Classical Learner YouTube channel. My private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected. Use the promo code TOGETHER. It's $10 a month. I stream every day at 12 noon. I'll be back tomorrow. Does she talk about homeschooling too? Yes, she does. Matthew, I never got back to you. I'm so overwhelmed with everything. I really appreciate that you offered to help me. And if you still want to help, I would love to hear you out, because that's people like you are just really good people. But all right, guys.
Do you talk about homeschooling?
I don't know. Do you? Do you talk about homeschooling?
Yeah, when I'm not nursing a baby.
When she's not nursing a baby.
Don't forget, I do have my doctorate in Chinese medicine.
Yes, my wife, speaking of nutrition, is a doctor of Chinese medicine. She's an acupuncturist. She is a legend, and she absolutely crushes. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day, and I'll be back at 12 noon tomorrow to earn it.